G'day Fools, I'm Scott Phillips, the Motley Fool's Chief Investment Officer here in Australia, and welcome to another in our very popular series, Motley Fool Stock of the Week. We're really pleased to bring it to you, of course, Stock of the Week, one stock every week from the Motley Fool's buy universe. Now, Fools, whether you've been around since the beginning or this is the first one you've seen, let me remind you of three quick things before we get going. The first is we're bringing you a buy recommendation from one of our services. Could be more than one service, by the way, at least one of our services. It is a buy recommendation at the time of recording. Now, of course, the internet is forever. Podcasts, YouTube videos are forever. So this will be up for a while. This is a buy recommendation now. We don't envisage will change anytime soon, but it's always possible. So keep that in mind. We're not promising this will remain a buy recommendation forever, but it is a buy recommendation when we record it and hopefully for the foreseeable future. Second, when we say it's a buy recommendation, we are long-term investors. We have no view about what's going to happen in the next day, or week, or month, or even year. That's right, the long term is measured in years, plural. So we're looking 3 to 5 years, even longer, into the future with this buy recommendation. And lastly, as ever, everything we do at the Motley Fool is general advice only. We can't give you personal advice, and you should always consider how our advice, our recommendations, our information suits your personal circumstances before you act on it. Those are really important things to say. I know it's a bit boilerplate, but it is genuinely important, legally, morally, ethically. We know to get out there and make sure you know exactly what we're doing. All right, with no further ado, let me introduce you to Kate Lee. Kate is a Motley Fool analyst. G'day, Kate. How are you?
Oh, very good. How are you, Scott?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. This is your first stock of the week. We're excited to have you joining the roster. Kate, you're going to bring us a company that some people will have heard of. I was certainly aware of it, but I wasn't aware of it before we recommended it as a recommendation. So I was excited to see it the first time around. The company name is Alcidion. The code is ALC. I guess it falls to me to ask you, Kate, what exactly is Alcidion and what does it do?
Yeah, so Alcidion is a healthcare informatics company. So they make a software, and their customers are mostly public health systems. So you can think about local health districts here in Australia or National Health Service Trust in the UK. And then they sell the software or a flat platform that helps clinical decision making or communication among healthcare providers, or say patient flow management and etc. So they've got a number of software that's being used at a hospital setting mostly for the acute care. As I mentioned, their main market is Australia and New Zealand, and most recently they've made a very good progress into the UK market, which obviously it's much bigger market than here in ANZ.
Very good, thank you. Now, obviously, healthcare management generally, man, hasn't it been brought into focus over the last 18 months? Obviously, a really big, really important industry. And if they can make it better, cheaper, faster, hopefully more efficient, maybe even some better patient outcomes, that'd be great for everybody. So obvious to see why something like Alcidion might be wanted by medicos, by the hospitals themselves, by the healthcare providers. What is it about Alcidion as an investment that has led us to make it a buy?
Actually, let me take a step back and then explain about what's happening in the public health
Perfect,
system.
thank
I'm
you.
very excited about this. I'm very excited about this company because this one is particularly in the public health system. So there are two things that are happening globally in that delivery of healthcare, mainly in the public system. One is the digitization of personal health information. So that has been happening for a while. So from a decade ago, the US, or UK, or here in Australia, there has been a shift toward digitalizing all personal health records. And then whether you call it electronic health data record or electronic medical records. So that's pretty much done. So people say more than half of all such records are stored in a digital format now. So that part has been done. And then you'd notice that much of the diagnostic imaging data is also digitized by now. So what we have is that some parts of that healthcare system are already digitalized, mostly on the data side. However, there's still room to improve in terms of the areas of healthcare actual delivery of the care. So that's what's happening. And then second important trend is the trend towards out of hospital care. So that before we used to say, oh, we expect to have more patients, therefore we're going to build new hospital buildings. But there's this trend that we are going to provide the care out of the hospital at their homes, So the delivery of care is happening not just in the physical hospital setting, but also in patients' home environments as well. So from these two backgrounds, it's very logical that the public health systems are now moving towards more digitalized healthcare. So Alcidion stands right there to benefit from such structural trend in the big markets like the UK. So this company appears to be at the right place at the right time to me.
We like that. We like a nice, strong tailwind. And as you say, look, better health outcomes is even better. But if we can do well as investors as a result, that's fantastic. So you told us about the category. You told us about the company being ready to do it. Obviously, we're not going to buy just any company that happens to be in that space at this point. What is it about Alcidion that gives us the confidence to make it a recommendation?
I'm really excited about this UK opportunity. So, according to the company's number, right, the addressable market of the UK market of their products, those categories, is $1.1 billion. In Australia, that's about $500 million. New Zealand, much smaller, obviously. So, it's really important that they made that first step into the big market. In the UK, there are about 223 NHS trusts, excluding ones focused on the community or mental health or specialized services. There are about really 145 trusts that are delivering acute care. Of that pool, currently 27 trusts are using at least one of Alcidion's products. So you could see that's about 20% market share. So they can grow, one, by expanding their product offerings to the existing customers. And then number two, by expanding its market share within the NHS trust in the UK. And then lastly, obviously, that's just one of the countries that they are working on. So they can, expand obviously in Australia, in New Zealand, and elsewhere. So I'm very excited about the market opportunity. And then secondly, the user stickiness, right? So we're talking about this public system, these all healthcare, I mean, the public health information will be stored on their platform. All this patient flow information will be managed using their platform. So usually the contract need to be renewed every 4 to 5 years, but even at the end of the, that contract term, I see it's going to be very difficult for the users to transition into other systems. So there's a market opportunity, there's user stickiness, and then that geographical expansion that's happening. So those are the three reasons I really like this company.
Nice. That's a pretty impressive triumvirate of reasons if you think about it. As you say, a big market, a growing market. And there is some sense of, as you say, the land and expand idea, as the Boffins like to call it, the idea of you get in once with something and then grow from there. And as you say, one of the really interesting trends we're seeing right now, it's not a trend so much as I don't know what to call it, but there is a phenomenon, maybe it's the best word, of when you're changing from old to new or newer, it's a step change that lets you take on something like Alcidion or something else. Xero is a great example in cloud accounting people might be familiar with, where if you're going to go away from desktop accounting, you'll look anew at some options. You'll pick a cloud option, probably Xero, maybe not. And you're probably going to stick with that until some other seismic change happens, because trying to take all your data out of Xero, put it into something else, just too much hard work for not enough upside. And as you say, Alcidion being at the forefront of exactly that change becomes the recipient of that new business. But changing away from it, unless you bring something really materially better and different, just the hassle, the cost, trying to convince a whole lot of staff to use a different system, by the way, is going to be its own challenge, as you say. So they're really, really important. Kate, let's make sure we touch on the risks. We always do every time we do one of these stocks of the week, I should say. It's one of those things that we always try and do at the Motley Fool to make sure we don't just go out there and tell a positive story. That's why it's a buy, of course, but we're not blind to the risks. We're not unaware of the risks, and we certainly want to make sure our listeners and viewers are aware of those risks. So maybe you can just give us a quick summary of some of the risks facing Alcidion as an investment.
Absolutely. So the risks are, I guess, number one risk would be competition, right? So now they are doing very well, and then they're just one of very few companies actually do provide the full suite of the products. So it's just they are the one that can provide integrated software. But when it gets to individual software, say like patient, not so much of patient flow management, but say clinical decision making, in that subcategories, there are a number of competitors there. So, and also we never know in the world of technology, in a couple of years' time, there could be some new emerging company coming with a bit newer technology. So there's always the risk for that. Secondly, I mentioned every 4 to 5 years they renew the contract. So there's absolutely the risk that they, if their orders or contracts do fall down, do slow down, then that's going to be a big red flag, obviously. Lastly, their cash flow is still negative. Their latest quarterly update show they turn to that positive operating cash flow, but generally they're in the red for now. So again, that makes this company vulnerable to any, I guess, potential risks, such as the order flow slowing down, then nowhere to hide. So obviously, those three risks are the ones that you want to watch out for.
Very nice and well summarised. Thank you. All right, Kate, here we get to this part where this is the elevator pitch section of Stock of the Week. You've given us a sense of what the company is. You've told us a little bit about why you like it. You've shared the risks with us. Give us the elevator pitch, the 45-second version. Why should our viewers and listeners buy Alcidion today, do you reckon?
Alcidion, I think, is very well positioned to benefit from that structural trend that shift of the way the public system, healthcare system is being delivered. So I think it's just a no-brainer that that delivery of care has to move to digitalization, and then it has a proven track record in the local market and making a good progress into the larger market, which I always like to see. And also lastly, it's at the inflection point, because if you think about past year, obviously there was a COVID, the attention of the public healthcare providers were at that dealing with that COVID, and then that's out of the way. So and then give them the time to come back to the bigger problem, long-term trend shift such as digitalization. So I think it's the right time. It's a good story. Share price has run up a bit, but I still see a bright future ahead in the long term.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kate. There you go, fools. Kate Lee, Motley Fool analyst extraordinaire, smart lady, and you can see why we like having her on the team. And the stock was Alcidion. ALC is the code. It's a buy recommendation from one of our services and our free stock of the week for you this week. Now, of course, you can, and please do, follow us all around the web. Jump on the socials. Let's start with Twitter. You can jump on the Motley Fool AU or TMF Scott B. You can jump on Instagram using those very same handles, the Motley Fool AU and TMF Scott P. You can jump on Facebook, the Motley Fool Australia or Scott Phillips Money. Go to the Motley Fool Money podcast feed and subscribe if you're not already. Jump onto iTunes, the listener app from our friends at Southern Cross Austereo, or your favorite Android podcast app. And of course, do jump on our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and as the cool kids say, hit the notification bell to make sure you get all of this great content as soon as it is made available on the web. Thanks again, Kate, and until next week, Fool on.